Stuart Gall, owner-operator of Bank of Queensland, BiUC Erina.
Change the name to BiUC.
Indeed, it's much easier for us.
Okay.
And a banker through and through, but will not hold that against you at this stage because
right.
you've broken out and own your own.
That's
well,
it.
well, you're sharing it with Belinda, but we'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
Tell us about the decision to join a franchise. It's a big step.
Well, it wasn't really a big step because it's what I'd always done.
Yeah.
And somebody said, well, why don't you own your own bank? And I said, well, as if, like who owns their own bank? So they said, well, the Bank of Queensland's looking for bankers, with experience that are prepared to have a little bit of entrepreneurial skills, prepared to have a go. So I met with the bank in a secret location on the rocks in Sydney, and very hush-hush, and I was 55, and the option was I could retire from the bank, keep going along and just sitting and waiting for the retirement to happen, or start a new career. And what the BiUC offered me, or Bank of Queensland offered me, was the opportunity to do those things that was restricting me in the Big Four. And I saw, well, you may remember the Commercial Bank of Australia in 1982, and when the big bank came and took it over, they said, sorry, you don't have time for talking to customers anymore, we're too big, you don't have time for doing this. So when I took this on, it was really like the old Commercial Bank of Australia, which when it was taken over said, well, the little bank couldn't survive. Yeah. But in this day and age, it's shown that a little bank can survive because it's different.
And clients need that talk.
And those that have experienced the older people that remember the old banking say, this is what I'm talking about to the kids. And it's no big, rocket science. It's basically just talking to people, listening to what they've got to say and what they want.
Tell me about the the first couple of years in that role, because you are everything in that role. You are the owner, you are the manager, you are the loans officer.
Well, not really, because the people that I employed were all experienced bankers. So
right.
When people walked in the bank, they had an experienced banker asking the same questions that they'd asked in the Big Four, but able to give them answers straight away. So
is that the biggest difference? That's what BiUC offers better than anyone else? With regards to that conversation you can have with your bankers.
Yeah, if someone comes and wants $10 million, I can talk to them or my staff. And if someone wants a $500 credit card, I'll talk to them or the staff will talk to them. So we're able to do the same process, and we won't hand it across. We won't say, well, sorry, that's a home loan now you need to talk to this guy, or you need to borrow $3 million now that's the next level above me, or now you need $15 million, we'll talk to the next guy. We do the lot and put it all together, and with the experience you know what's a deal and what's not a deal. Mm-hmm. And you get a lot of people come to see you because they read the information and say, here's a guy that can make decisions, but the decisions you make in a small bank are exactly the same decisions as a big bank. It's about the person and about serviceability and what's the way out.
Are more of your clients or your prospects questioning their relationships with banks now, do you think?
Most certainly.
Yeah.
They, in the earliest days, I particularly didn't target anybody that came from the big banks. However, they still kept in touch with me and referred their kids and their associates because they knew that I could talk to them. And they still, even those that still have big accounts with other banks, still ring me and say, is this right or is this wrong? What do you think? Mm. So it's that trust thing. And I think that's what it's all about, is trust. Mm.
If you were looking back, what would you have changed? How long have you been running BiUC?
6.5 years.
Yeah. What would you have liked to have known when you started? Were there any things that you thought, okay, wow, that's a different sort of take on it?
Not a lot. I think our policies probably weren't as well defined because it was a bank that was quite old-fashioned when it started, and they had to put some things together, but they've got a lot better, clearer policies and a lot more understanding of business than when we started. We did a lot of home loans to start with, but now we're a lot more into the business, in the small business. And because we're into small business, then really we've got the same issues that any small business has.
And the small businesses are more demanding with their bankers as well, I would think now, or are they feeling more vulnerable and not prepared to discuss it with anyone?
Oh, no, no, there's no problem. People discuss if they don't, it soon comes out. If they've got a default on their credit card, it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
Or if they owe the tax department money, it doesn't take long. It all shows up.
Yeah. So is that, what's your process with, I guess, developing relationships with new clients or prospects? Do they come in and they generally say, Stuart, can I just have a chat? Or do they come in and say, I want to move my accounts?
Some people go to the other four and say, I'm going to the Bank of Queensland before I know it.
Yeah.
And they say, I've already told them. Other people come in and say, what's this all about? And then other people say, well, how can you own a bank? How does that work? So there's a lot of questions, and different people ask different questions. And we're sort of obliged to tell them how it works.
You have an extraordinary, you're one of the top 10, or it's top 100 AFX, I think, ASX, I should say, companies in Australia, I believe you're advertising.
That's
is that
right,
true?
that's true, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. So you have all that power, plus the local.
Yeah, so basically, we get commission on everything we do. So we don't get commission on everything, some things we don't, because it doesn't earn enough money. But basically, we're a commission-based model, and the more business we do is the more we make, and the more we make, the more staff we need, and the more staff we need, the more we employ people locally.
Yeah,
and we basically, when I started the bank, I didn't take anybody directly from a bank. My daughter was working with a superannuation, I think it was State Super. My loans officer was working for a retirement village, and then the other tellers were working for other banks that were were stressed out from the sales that they had put on them, and that was where we
Interesting decision not to hire bankers.
No, they were bankers.
The tellers
had banking experience, but they weren't in banking at the time.
Oh, right.
They'd left banking because of the stresses of the sales that was put on them and targets.
What sort of strategies do you look at for the next 12 months? Is going to be,
really, the strategy we've got is just to get to be known. Our brand is stronger. I mean, when we started, BOQ was not known well in New South Wales. People expected it to be a red-coloured bank because of the state of origin, and there's an interesting, some of the people from one of the other banks came on that first week and said, do you guys fly down on Monday and go back on Friday night? And I said, no, we're locals. Oh, you're locals. And one of our staff member, Janine G, is one of the oldest families in Gosford. So when we're locals, we really are locals.
You really are, indeed. Let's talk about business and satisfying small business needs. Do you have specific products for those small businesses that they should be talking to you about?
We have all the same products that the big four have. We have term loans, we have overdrafts, we have business line of credits, we have international transactions, we have forward exchange contracts, we have everything the big four have. We have merchant facilities, we have...
Similar rates?
Similar rates. I mean, we've got to compete all the time against the big four, and lots of people are price conscious, and we can compete on price.
Okay. In terms of getting those businesses to come to you, is it word of mouth that works, or is...
I would say 90% of our business is networking and word of mouth, and people referring people. They have that sense of ownership of you, that you're a banker and you're their banker, and they like to say, go and see my friend Stuart at the bank. A guy came in the bank the other day and he walked in with a fellow, and he came up and he smacked me over the head and hit me around the ears and said, I'd like you to meet my friend. And I thought to myself, isn't that nice that he can just walk into the bank
and slap you around
and slap you around and say, but he feels just as good about me being his customer as I about him being my customer.
Let's talk about tips on for your customers now. If small businesses are coming into you talking about borrowing money or whatever, are there some requirements that you're expecting to see, or how can you make that easier, I guess is the question.
Really get yourself a good accountant and get yourself really good financial information and have it up to date as much as you can. And if you do that, then the decision process is very easy. Whatever you do, don't get a bad credit rating in this market, because the banks won't want to know you. So they believe that lepers don't change their spots. So really, if you probably the most important asset they've got in the current environment is their credit rating. You don't get a good credit rating, you only get a bad one.
Yeah.
So
you talk to other BiUC franchisees around Australia. Is the Central Coast going through more difficult times, the same sort of activity as other areas?
As a bank, we're going as well as we've ever gone. We're doing good quality loans, good quality business, and deposits are rolling in as good as they ever have, and our default rate is not bad. So we would be, if we're representative, then I think it's like lots of places in Australia, there's good spots and bad spots, but we, as a local bank, compared to the other, we do as well as anybody else, and if not better.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Okay.
And that was pretty painless then, wasn't
it? Okay, thank you.
Yes.